a decade, Saturdays and Illegal Curve have been synonymous with one another. With insight, analysis, and interviews regarding the Winnipeg Jets, the Manitoba Moose, and all around the NHL, here are Dave Minuk, Ezra Ginsburg, and your host, Drew Mindell. The Illegal Curve Hockey Show starts now.
Good morning, Winnipeg. Good morning, Manitoba. For all those joining us live this morning on our YouTube channel and all of our social media platforms, we say good morning, universe, and welcome to the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. With Dave Minuk, with Ezra Ginsburg, I'm your host, Drew Mindell, here to talk about the Winnipeg Jets, the Stanley Cup Playoffs. Great interviews with Sarah Orlesky and Daniel Fink upcoming. It's going to be a jam-packed 2 hours on this dreary, at least in Winnipeg, Saturday morning. I know that we have some friends joining us from outside of Winnipeg. Genghis Ken is here from Chicago. Dylan is here from Edmonton. And I hope the weather is better in those places than it is here in Peg City. John,
it is supposed to get nicer next week, though.
Yes.
I checked the forecast. So next week, we're finally going to get spring, even though it's almost summer.
There you go. It's a little bit of that silver lining for the Jets not being in the playoffs is that at least hopefully the weather will turn at that point in time. So, it won't be like you're trapped indoors when it's a beautiful day outside. You can actually go out and enjoy your weather, the beautiful weather that's hopefully in store for us, because it has certainly been a very long time since we've been able to do that. Good to see you fine gentlemen. How was the post game show that I know happens after we depart following the regular post game show? Did you guys have some quality time together last night like you usually do?
Yeah, it wasn't as long though as normal, just because we had today's show right to get up for. So yeah, we kibitzed a little bit, but it wasn't that long. But yeah, we always have a good time on the post game show, and then also have a good time on the wrap up show.
That's right, exactly, the wrap-up show. Now, Dave M., after last night's incident where Ezzy knocked over the lamp into your wall, can you report back on any of the damage that may have been done to the wall? Is there any paint that needs to be repaired? Chips in the wall? What's happened with the wall in this morning's update?
I took a picture. There was some damage. The last vestiges of the thing that surrounds the light cracked, and so there's some damage, not damage, but there's some broken shards of plastic that are currently on the floor. I left it as a little reminder for Ezzy, and I did just clip and tweet the video. So if anybody didn't see it last night, as the light falls behind Ezzy, it's now on my Twitter, IC Dave. So yeah, good times. It was funny because we were doing we were getting ready to do the post game show, which generally takes place downstairs. And then for whatever reason, next thing I know, I got a big dumb animal sitting in my bedroom, and I'm like, "What are you doing in my bedroom right now? This is my
look,
safe
guys.
space."
We got to game 81 without me, setting Dave's house on fire. Even though Dave's got the fire behind him, but we got through game 80 to 81 almost without me knocking over the lamp. So
that doesn't explain why you were in his bedroom last night, though.
Don't you remember the same time remember, I think it was probably game 40-ish when Ezzy wandered through my office and somehow found an original IC2. So, I mean, look, when I admit the guy to the house, I'm giving him free reign. I've actually, he's on the house. He's on title. I mean, you just kind of have to go.
Is he on the mortgage?
Dave does the show in his bedroom. So I went upstairs after and we had a little chit chat. Just because you won't let me in your bedroom,
I won't let you in my house. Never mind my bedroom. I want you in my house.
Thankfully, just
bedroom is so far off the realm of possibility that there's armed guards standing.
Yeah, like that. You have like a steel door that's got like 7 different locks on it. Like there's absolutely no chance that anybody's getting in there.
You know the safe from Ocean's 11? That's what I have going on to prevent you from getting into my bedroom.
I would say, though, that, it was unbeknownst to me that Ezzy was coming up, because I just kind of heard that someone coming up the stairs. I was like, well, at least I hope that's Ezzy at this point. And then
it was awkward because Dave wasn't wearing pants, so then he had to put pants on.
The very pants I was supposed to be wearing. But anyways, thankfully I've got a big room. He sat far. Don't worry, folks.
There you go. Good to know. Thank you for that latest update on the shenanigans of Dave and Ezzy, because I know for one I was desperately interested in what happened after, and the, as you guys say, the wrap-up show after the post-game show.
Basically, I owe Dave a lamp. That's pretty much. I have to go to Home Depot as soon as the show's over to buy a lamp for Dave.
Good luck with getting that lamp, Dave. That's what I'll say in response to that. A reminder, one more post-game show tomorrow after the Jets and the Seattle Kraken, and that'll be right around 3:30 in the afternoon. Post-game show number 82 of this 2021-22 season. Most people thought there would be more than 82 post-game shows. I certainly did. All the prognosticators certainly did. This Jets team not going to be a playoff team, obviously. Mark Chipman was on yesterday with Sarah Orlesky talking about the disappointment that came with the Jets' performance this season and his thoughts on that. Let's hear from the Winnipeg Jets owner. We don't often hear from Mark Chipman, so let's hear what he had to say yesterday in the broadcast, assuming the technology works, which is, as you all know, very much a crapshoot. Let's see if it may have screwed up already. So we're off to a great start there. I'll get it queued up. You guys talk about Mark Chipman's comments while I get it queued up. Okay.
Well, hopefully you don't have to watch a commercial here, Drew, because that would be I don't know, like you got mad at me yesterday. Oh, it looks like there's a commercial that we're gonna have to watch. Way to go, Drew. Tisk. Maybe we should minimize that.
Yeah, we might as well play one of our commercials while we're waiting.
Yeah, like holy nana. But anyways, look, yeah, were his comments that shocking? No, I mean, I wasn't. I think the only thing he did was confirm what most of us believed, was that he wasn't planning on making any quick changes, especially at the top. I mean, if he was going to make a change with Kevin Cheveldayoff, it likely would have been quite a while ago. And I mean, do you let him do the exit interviews and then you say goodbye? I guess you could have an exit interview with him and decide what his fate is going to be. That's obviously a possibility, but I just expect them to not. I didn't expect them to make a change with him. And so all his interview with Sarah really did was confirm that expectation, and the fact that Mark Chipman loves the Moose.
He does still love the Moose.
That's his baby, right? I mean, bringing the Minnesota Moose over in 1996, so that literally is his baby.
Yeah. Well, I don't think
it's not literally.
It's actually not literally his baby. Yeah.
It's
he has two daughters.
The exact
Those are his
opposite of
babies.
literally. Yeah. It's. I mean, we should all have the job security of Kevin Cheveldayoff, I would say. I mean, it's remarkable. And
Dave and I do though, but I mean, the host position. We always have the job posting ready to go, right, Dave?
Oh yeah, it's like 1 second away from hitting send.
Yeah, like we're ready to fire that up on
Winnipeg Jets owner Mark Chipman speaking yesterday with Sarah Orlesky on the Jets broadcast in the second intermission about the disappointment that was this season. I mean, look, I'm not surprised. He didn't say anything of significance, which in and of itself doesn't surprise me, but I can't help but get the undercurrent that they don't think significant changes are required.
I don't know about that. I mean, okay. Come on. What's he going to do? He's going to come on TSN and be like, we're firing everybody with one game left to go. I mean, he's not doing that. So, I mean, like, these guys aren't going to tip their hand. He's going to come on. He's going to say what he said. I mean, like, look, you can say whatever you want about Mark Chipman. The guy is not unrefined. He knows how to speak, and he knows what he's thinking, what he's going to say in advance. So to me, there's no surprise based on what he said. And I mean, I really didn't anticipate him saying, like, look, he said we're going to have to do an analysis. Well, that's what is everybody called for? An audit. And if at the end of this audit they decide Kevin Cheveldayoff isn't the guy to take them into next season, well, I guess they can do that. And the truth is, I mean, is there someone out there that the GM that you're saying the Jets have to hire tomorrow? Like, the reality for me, at least, is that there's not some brilliant candidate that's right now waiting in the wings that you're saying, if you don't make a move right now, you're going to lose him. Kind of like, wait, for the record, kind of the way that, in terms of coaching, the way they did, right? So as far as I can tell, there's no GM out there that everyone in the league is saying, this guy needs a job or this girl needs a job. And so right now, again, you're going to let Kevin Cheveldayoff handle the exit interviews because, and again, I don't anticipate that he's going to be relieved of his responsibilities. So it doesn't matter. But I'm just going through with your thought process. And I just don't know that there's any need for speed here because again, nothing tremendous is going to happen. I mean, obviously you're going to start talking to Pierre-Luc Dubois' camp about a new contract. You're going to need to talk about to some of the other RFAs about new contracts. But overall, none of that stuff happens anyways right away, right? So they're going to turn their focus onto the draft and that sort of thing. And for the record, Kevin Cheveldayoff and his draft in his amateur group have done very well, so that's not a huge concern. But I just don't know from that perspective if there's any need. Like, you can say there's a need for change, that's fine. But like I said, I don't think that you don't have to do it quickly. You can do it in a measured way, because maybe that's the appearance he wants to give. I mean, maybe he's prepared to relieve Kevin Cheveldayoff of his responsibilities as GM. I don't think that's going to happen.
No,
but if they do, all I'm going to say is I just don't think that there's a need to do it in a quick manner. They can do it in a thoughtful manner, and then, like I said, find a suitable candidate as his replacement.
Well,
yeah. See, I just want to get in here for. Sorry, go ahead, Drew.
I was just going to say it's a results-oriented business, except for apparently in the general manager's seat here in Winnipeg, because the team has won playoff series in 1 year since they've returned from Atlanta. So they've had 1 year of success. If you really go by what
they swept the Oilers, but yeah,
NHL.
I mean they have 2 years of playoff wins. But yeah, I know what you're saying, Drew. 2018 was the year in which they got to the West Final. But look, going back to
they've won a playoff series only in one season.
That's not true. They beat the Oilers.
Oh yes, sorry, that's right. You're right.
I just said that.
I forgot. I apologize.
Well, I know. I was reiterating the point, because I was like, I think Drew was in such a blind rage with trying to get his point in. I was like, I don't think he just heard what Ezzy said, which refuted his point. Go on.
I didn't hear what Ezzy said.
Let's get back to Mark Chipman's interview with Sarah, and obviously, we can ask Sarah about that as well. But I mean, yeah, I agree with what Drew said, and I think even though we could debate whether, as I like the word that you use there, Drew, undercurrent. I think whether or not you think that undercurrent was there, I think a lot of Jets fans were looking for that undercurrent, right? Like, they wanted, Mark Chipman to say something that might, indicate what is going to happen over the next few weeks. I've been on the record, and if anybody knows, as soon as I say I'm on the record, that probably means that whatever I say is absolutely not going to happen, such as the Islanders winning the Stanley Cup and then missing the playoffs. So I think, there is going to be a coaching change, and I do think that coaching change is going to come relatively quickly after that last game against the Kraken. I'm not saying it comes the next day at all, but I would say in a week to 3 weeks after the season ends, which is, as I just mentioned, Sunday, I do think there's going to be a coaching change. Now, I don't know if that means the entire staff. I mean, we haven't seen that, but the way we've talked about this with many people throughout the year. Craig Button was very vocal on TSN. The way that this team performed throughout the season doesn't match up with the talent that they have on the ice, right? Like, look at Kyle Connor, sets a record for most points in Jets 2.0 history. Nikolai Ehlers, Dave mentioned this yesterday, Nikolai Ehlers doesn't miss those 19 games. He sets career highs, right? Like, he was on pace for 75, 80 points. So you have Connor and Ehlers in their prime. You have, Josh Morrissey in his prime. Pierre-Luc Dubois probably is just before his prime. But the point is that, if the Jets get a few extra points in overtime, a few extra points against teams that they should have beaten, the Jets are in the playoffs, not Dallas, right? And we talked about it. Like, Dallas was doing everything they could to keep Vegas in the playoff race, right? Like, Dallas should be around 98 or 99 points at this point. Like, they really were making it hard on themselves to clinch that last playoff spot. So my point is that the Jets could have easily been a playoff team this year, even though, they had so many disappointing efforts and disappointing losses. But, when you talk about Kevin Cheveldayoff, I mean, look at the beginning of the season, guys, bringing in Nate Schmidt, bringing in Brendan Dillon, re-signing Paul Stastny, everybody was ready to anoint the Jets as Stanley Cup champions. So, I mean, should his job be looked at in terms of, his success and failure? Yeah, of course it does. But I'm with Dave. I don't think Chevy is going anywhere, but I do think there are going to be changes in the coaching staff. I don't know if that's just the head coach or the entire staff, but I mean, I just don't think you can go into next season with the same coaching staff. I just don't know if they've done anything that I don't think they've earned it.
I agree wholeheartedly about the coaching staff, and I think that decision, as you mentioned, as it will come quite quickly. I mean, I'd be surprised if it doesn't come Monday or Tuesday, as you mentioned, when the season comes to an end. I think to me, it's a no-brainer. And I know, Mark Chipman talks about that they don't have a history of being reactionary and they want to, go through their process and blah, blah, blah. I mean, I don't know how much more of a process you need to go through to come to the determination that Dave Lowry is not right for the permanent head coaching job. Not permanent, but the removal of the interim tag from behind the head coach. I just don't think you can sell that to anybody as being a step forward for this organization. Let me ask you guys this. I mean, it's apparent to me as well that Kevin Cheveldayoff is more likely than not to return as general manager. I don't know that I necessarily agree with that decision, but it's not my name on the check that's being written, so that's not my prerogative. Do you think this organization needs another layer? Do they need that president of hockey operations that we've seen talked about, that we now see in Vancouver with Jim Rutherford, that we see in Toronto with Brendan Shanahan,
Montreal, Jeff Gorton,
Montreal, certainly. Do the Jets need that president of hockey operations? Because they certainly haven't had that since they've returned.
Yeah, I kind of, jumped the gun there and was saying yes, but I do think, that is something that they should look at. And, I agree with Dave. I mean, there's not one person who becomes a parent, but I mean, there's a lot of smart hockey people out there, whether they're in broadcasting, former players, looking to get in, to those managerial roles. So yeah, look at it. I mean, Toronto is probably the best example with the Shanaplan, right? Like, it was originally, of course, Shanahan, Lamoriello, and Dubas. And then we all remember what happened with Kyle Dubas becoming the general manager, then Lamoriello going to the Islanders, right? But yeah, I think there's something to be said for just bringing in someone else and, helping, maybe, taking a little bit off of Kevin Cheveldayoff's plate. So I definitely think if you simply look at other teams around the NHL that have put that type of, managerial structure in place, I think for the most part, you've seen good results. Look at Montreal. I think Montreal has done an excellent job, selling before the trade deadline, loading up on draft picks. Even though Kent Hughes is the guy, that's the GM, we all know that, Jeff Gorton's got his hands all over, those moves, the Ben Sherratt trade to Florida or the Tyler Toffoli trade to Calgary. I mean, that Jeff Gorton is involved in that. So yeah, Drew, I think that's something that Mark Chipman and True North should look at, maybe bringing in, president of hockey operations to work with Chevy.
I think it's, I always thought it was sort of redundant. I was never really necessarily a big fan of it, but it does seem, and this is just my outsider's point of view, Dave, is that it's almost like the GM job at the NHL level at this point in time is almost too much and you need that extra layer. It's such a big job. When you look at it, from the professional standpoint, when you look at it from the amateur standpoint, that there is almost if the general manager is the chief operating officer, then you need a CEO above the COO to just sort of almost act as a sounding board or act as another voice of reason. Now, that the caveat of that is that, ego is certainly a factor, and that's human nature. I'm not saying that's a specific, to Kevin Cheveldayoff or anything, but that you need to make sure that if you're going to put in that extra layer, it's done in a manner so that everything else is copacetic when that extra layer comes into effect.
Yeah, I would suggest, and again, it becomes a question, like as he said, like Montreal's a good example, right? Like you brought in Gordon to be that sort of positional. That's right, and he's considered a good hockey mind, right? And he look what he was able to do for the Rangers. I mean, even though they got rid of him, I mean, he sure set them up for a high level of success, which they're now seeing, right? So, does someone like that, provide you with an additional voice? And look, new voices are good sometimes, right? New voices are, even we see it on the show every once in a while when we have to sprinkle in a guest every, Shawnee Reynolds or Kenny Weeb, someone comes in and
they're Orlesky in 8 minutes time.
Yeah. So I think a new voice is it brings something to the table that, isn't there and like you said, Drew, it provides a sounding board. And look, Larry Simmons is a busy guy. I mean, he's at every Jets game, every Moose game. I see him all the time, and he does
Larry
a lot of
Simmons being assistant general manager for those who might not be aware.
Yeah, of course. And then of course Zinger does. He's the other assistant general manager. He focuses on the Moose, and he does makes most of the moves for the Moose. Larry Simmons does all the moves for the Cap. So I mean, there is definitely like space if you could bring someone in, but like you said, there is that factor of ego, and there's also the factor of trust and having to find someone new to join your team. But we see it all the time, right? We see guys, in all facets of the game, really, right? In terms of like social media, for example, you have like a whole, for example, the Jets brought in a bunch of new people. Like you do bring in new people all the time, and you get new voices and you get new inputs. And sometimes, after the message gets a little stale, if you don't want to make wholesale changes, then maybe adding someone, honestly, and I know people are like the idea of like one of the Botterill, Jason Botterill, Jennifer Botterill, Jason Botterill was pretty well regarded as a assistant general manager when he was there in Pittsburgh. Yeah. And, we've got Jennifer Botterill.
His GM role didn't work so well
in out so well in Buffalo, but the point is that he was considered a good assistant general manager. You've got Jennifer Botterill, good Winnipegger, Harvard, played the game. Excellent. And
just for the record, by the way, Jason Botterill is the assistant GM of the Kraken.
No, I know, but I'm saying that you could always try and bring him home to a little.
No, I know you knew that, Dave. I just wanted for people that weren't sure that if he was working for a team or not.
No, for sure. And then like I said, Jennifer Botterill, to me, she's the best part of that Sportsnet broadcast.
Well, she should also be in the Hockey Hall of Fame. Yeah,
well, there you go. But then we have her on the show. She's fantastic, right? She's just an excellent interview. And so I'm just saying, like, you can always bring in new voice. Now you're not going to give Jennifer Botterill the job of president of hockey operations, but she's had no managerial success, experience. You don't just, again, that's what you're trying to get away from, is this idea of just handing people things because of who they are. You want them to actually earn it. But like I said, the idea of getting new voices isn't necessarily a bad thing, as long as A, they're listened to, and B, they know what they're talking about.
And I just wanted to quickly throw this in there.
How does that relate to us?
Yeah, none of us are going to be hired as the president of hockey operations.
Thankfully, we run our own checks, though, so we don't have to worry about anybody firing us.
Hey, one former member of Illegal Curve, one former member is a pro scout for the Toronto Maple Leafs, okay? Yeah. There isn't going to be a second former member of Illegal Curve who becomes a pro scout. I would love to become a pro scout for my New Jersey Devils, but they haven't been calling me, guys. It's weird. I keep checking my phone to see if Tom Fitzgerald is calling me, but he's not calling me. So, I think Vancouver is a good model. I think, Drew, you mentioned Vancouver, right? Like you bring in Jim Rutherford. Yeah. Patrick Alvin is a very smart hockey mind, but Emily Castonguay and Cami Granato were brought in as assistant general managers. Mm-hmm. First off, I love the female hires. I absolutely love that. Going back to what we were talking about with Jen Botterill, not only is she a great analyst, I think she is just a very smart hockey mind. And I think, if whoever hires Jennifer Botterill is going to be getting an excellent person. Just put it that way. But then they brought in the Sedins as this, I think it's special advisor to the general manager, right? Or special advisor to the president. So I think, that's something probably that, Mark Chipman and True North are going to look at, right? Like the structure, like who do we need to bring in here to accomplish our goals? So it's not just, I agree, everything with Dave said. Like, I don't think Chevy is going anywhere. I think, he has the complete confidence of Mark Chipman, but that doesn't mean, that they can't look at bringing on someone in a higher up managerial role to help Shovelday off.
Well said, Ezzy. I think it'll be another fascinating layer to the offseason. And that, of course, offseason begins tomorrow after about 3:30 in the afternoon. We'll see how quickly changes get announced or how quickly changes get made, if they get made at all. But, of course, the latest will be on illegalcurve.com. And remember, a special Monday night edition of this fine broadcast, as the locker room cleanout is Monday. We'll bring you all the latest, everything that went on, our analysis, and, of course, a couple of interviews as well that we're looking to line up for Monday. So put Monday 8 p.m. in your calendars, a special edition of the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. When we come back, Sarah Orlesky is going to join us. More Jets talk. Smash the like button. Subscribe to the YouTube channel if you haven't already done so. It's a Saturday morning. We're live on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show.
Keeping Winnipeg laughing for over 30 years. Rumors, Canada's longest-running comedy club, bringing you the biggest laughs from the best comedians on the planet. Jerry Seinfeld, Chris Rock, Jon Stewart, Dennis Miller, Brad Garrett, the greats, and all the up-and-comers too. When was the last time you laughed out loud? Make it a great night out with friends, or book your office or birthday party. Even a fundraising event at Rumors. Get all the details and dates on upcoming shows at rumorscomedyclub.com.
Hi, Ez. A strange question for you. But why are you lying on the ground being crushed by a piano?
Well, Drew, I definitely tried to carry this baby grand piano down the stairs by myself, and somehow I failed miserably.
Right. Yeah, sorry, that was a silly question on my part. My apologies. Would you like me to call Rolly's Transfer Moving and Storage to help you move the piano? They are the most experienced piano moving company in Winnipeg, after all.
Yes, please call Rolly's and hurry. This piano is very, very heavy.
Rolly's Transfer Moving and Storage offers stress-free residential moving services while taking great care of your personal belongings, including your piano. At Rolly's, no job is too big or too small. For more information, visit rollys.com.
Hi, it's Drew from Illegal Curve here. Selling your home can be stressful, but it wasn't for me. Thanks to my friends at Zappia Group Realty, they made the process so easy. My home sold within 48 hours and with multiple offers. Zappia Group Realty took care of everything with their exquisite customer service and attention to detail. If you want to sell your home for more in less time, get started by talking to Frank and Mauro Zappia of Zappia Group Realty. Online at zappiagroup.com.
Hey, it's Aaron from Bernstein's Deli.
That's right, Ezzy. I'm the guy who makes all your sandwich dreams come true.
So when you think Illegal Curve, what comes to you?
How about juicy chicken schnitzel, grilled salami, fried onions, melted cheddar cheese, and honey mustard on toasted thick-cut city rye bread?
Man, that's like the holy grail of sandwiches.
And so it shall be known as the Illegal Curve Sandwich.
The Illegal Curve Sandwich. Try it today at Bernstein's Deli. Find us at Corridon and Lanark or online at bernsteinsdeli.com.
Hey, Drew.
Ezzy, whoa, what a smile!
Yeah, I got my crowns done at Linden Market Dental Center, and they whiten my teeth.
I see.
They're so bright that every time I smile, they go,
We have hockey tonight. Do you have a mouth guard to protect those pearly whites?
I sure do.
Whoa, they even ting through the mouth guard.
Linden Market Dental Center covers all your dental needs from restorative to cosmetic dentistry and will fit you with a sports guard for that active lifestyle. 877 Waverly. See lindenmarketdental.com.
So you're a pizza person, you married a wing person, but somehow your kids are salad people. You can't pick your fam, but you can pick your BP meal deal, starting from $18.99 for takeout or delivery at bostonpizza.com.
Bottom of the hour, welcome back to the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. Drew Mindell, Dave Minuk, Ezra Ginsburg with you on this Saturday morning, and we're thrilled to welcome back to the program our very good friend, you know her from the TSN hockey broadcast. Sarah Orlesky joins us on the show. Sarah, good morning. How are you?
Good morning. Sorry for the big headphones. I was trying to connect my AirPods and I probably should have started trying to do that a little bit earlier than about 9:28. And so I was in full panic mode. So anyways, I had to go a little bit old school.
That's
but
okay.
Great to see you guys this morning.
Sarah, you don't have to apologize ever to us, okay? We should always be the ones that are apologizing to you. No matter what you do, we should be apologizing.
Just a preemptive apology before anything else begins.
If you guys could text that to my husband as well, that's a motto that he should go with, I'd appreciate it.
We will get right on that after the interview, no problem. Sarah obviously brought you on, talk about the Jets, talk about the end of the season, which is rapidly approaching tomorrow with that bonus game or whatever you want to call it before the playoffs begins for everybody else. But I want to start with the interview you conducted with Mark Chipman in the second intermission of last night's broadcast. We obviously heard what Mark said and typical to the Winnipeg Jets and typical to his approach, very calm and measured and, cards close to his chest. What did you take from the interview? What did you take from being, right there next to Mark as you guys conducted your discussion?
Pretty much that. And I was listening to Three talk a little bit about it earlier, and I don't think that people should be surprised that that's the approach that Mark Chipman's going to take. What in any of the years that he has been involved with hockey, have we seen anything less from him? And as much as I see the reaction from people about looking for some sort of immediate change, or I also think that people have to remember that just making reactionary changes just for the sake of doing it don't necessarily always turn out. He's not saying that changes aren't going to be made, whatever they may be. We know they're obviously not going to come back with the exact same roster that they had this year. Whether or not there's coaching changes, that remains to be seen. But I think that it is important to take your time. They need to get this right. I've said for the last, number of weeks, I would say it regularly on SportsCenter or That's Hockey, that I think that the Winnipeg Jets could and should be the most interesting Canadian team in the offseason, because changes need to occur. Again, whatever they decide that those changes start, and it's easy to be the armchair GM or armchair owner, coach, you name it. I think that they do need to make sure that they get this right, because fans in this marketplace, we've seen it obviously with the dips in attendance. Some of that's obviously with the pandemic, but I think that people were looking for a little bit of a change before that even happened. And so you want to make sure you get it right. So take your time, do that full top to bottom deep dive into the organization and what needs to change. And don't just do things reactionary for the sake of it. You want to make sure that however you approach your coaching situation, that you get the right person for the job. Is same thing with any trades for players. So nothing that he said surprised me. I would have been a lot more surprised if he said, wait for Monday, everybody. We're throwing this, we're throwing everything to the wind and we're just going to blow this all up. I don't think that that's what we need to see either, because this isn't a team. This is a team that's certainly underperformed this year. Nobody is denying that. Players, especially in the last few weeks, have said it themselves. They've been accountable with it. But this isn't a team that is at the bottom, that is struggling to get back up there. I think this needs some tweaks. It doesn't need to be blown up.
I agree with you 100%. There's so much talent on this roster, and you've got players like Cole Perfetti, who should play a full-time role in the NHL next year, Sarah. So I agree with you 100%. I think that the Jets are not miles away from getting back into the playoffs. It's more likely to use, because CFL season is not too far away. We're inches away here, not miles away, or I guess I should say kilometers, because we're in Canada. But Sarah, I mean, we have so much to talk to you about. Obviously, we're gonna talk about Dennis, and we want to get your, I liked what you said actually. Speaking of the Mark Chipman interview, you referenced Tom Brady at the end, and you said that Dennis, you can still pull a Tom Brady here and come out of retirement. So maybe we will see that. You never know.
I said that to Dennis when Dennis first told me that this is what he was deciding to, which, rightfully so. He's been over 50 years broadcasting industry. Not often, as you can appreciate, and so many people can, not often can you call your own shot as to when you get to leave. And so to be able to finish it out this way and go and travel and do the things that he wants to do, he's certainly earned all of that and more. But I do keep pleading with him about Tom Brady. He said that I think it would be fantastic. He's going to the World Championships. Why not? Give it a couple weeks. Think about it. Maybe you want to reconsider. Come back. We've been so fortunate to have Dennis in this market since the team came back here in 2011. So he is a joy to work with. He is one of the kindest, most fantastic people that you can meet. And just quickly, sorry, I don't mean to go off on a whole tangent about how wonderful Dennis is, but one thing that I think is really important for your listeners to be able to know too, and I think that it comes across on the screen, but he's just so genuine. And there's Dennis that he wanted to, he didn't want the fanfare originally. So he was just going to kind of ride off into the sunset and not let anyone know until it got announced later on that someone new was coming in and he'd retired. And that would have been such a shame, because you've seen the outpouring of affection for him and tributes that have gone on to him. But his thing to me is the way that he treats people, and he treats everybody. There is no hierarchy with Dennis Mayak, and whether you are, he loves our crew. He treats everybody in the crew so fantastic. I think it's a lesson that so many people could learn about the way that you treat people. And just when you walk around the building, he knows all of the security staff by name, catering staff. He is a consummate pro, and there aren't many people left like Dennis. So tomorrow is going to be a tough one for all of us to go through, but so thrilled that he gets to go out on his own terms and gets to enjoy some of the travels that we know he's been dying to do.
Yeah, and I agree with you 100%. I think hockey fans, not just Jets fans, would have no problem if Dennis decided to come back for another year, 2 years, 3 years, whatever. And you're right. I mean, we've been lucky. We obviously don't get to interact with him nearly as much as you do, but we've got to know him, and he's been so generous with his time over the years, going back to TSN 1290. So I mean, all of us will always have nothing but good things to say. And I did text Dennis to see if I could stay at his house in Kelowna when he's out of town, but he didn't return my text. So, but Sarah, I wanted to ask you.
You're going to have to beat me to it.
Yeah, exactly.
Let me tell you.
I've never been to Kelowna. Apparently it's beautiful. So I'm just.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know if my wife Naomi is okay if I just leave for Kelowna and go by myself for a week.
That Ezzy is preemptively banned from is long and extensive, and we don't have enough hours in the broadcast to go through it.
I'm actually just not allowed in the entire continent of Europe for some reason. Like it's odd that I can't even go to like any country. But Sarah, I wanted to ask you, just looking at the season as a whole, because as you mentioned, I mean, there's one game left tomorrow on TSN against the Kraken, but we know that the deep dive, the reflection has been happening for, I don't know, a couple of weeks now. Like, and Dennis did mention this on the broadcast, and these aren't his words exactly, obviously, but he said, like, the Jets really just weren't able to put a long winning streak together. They'd win a couple games or maybe 3 games, but they weren't able to put 4 or 5 or 6 winning wins together. And that was something that you saw in 2017, 18, 2018, 19, the Jets putting those 5 or 6 game winning streaks together. But for you, when you look back at this season, and obviously there was injuries and you had players, in COVID protocol. Ehlers was the big injury, 19 games. Like, is that really, everybody knows that this season was disappointing, but if you could kind of sum it up, is that really what you saw throughout the season, is just a team that could just really never get over that hump?
Consistently inconsistent is, because that's exactly it. You would see spurts of it. I mean, we all know, again, the talent they have, and I reference what Blake Wheeler said back in training camp when he was asked about the roster, when, to tone down what he said, but, essentially what's on paper means little, to paraphrase. But it's true. They could never get going. And I always look at, and I don't know about you guys, but to me, it's not always about having just the most talented roster. I mean, how many times have we seen the really talented rosters not be able to take that next step, or it's taken them a number of years to be able to? You look at a team, it's a puzzle, right? You need different pieces, and they've all got to fit together. And just because you've got a really talented, and I would have put, especially before the trade deadline, I would have put their top 9 against a lot of the top 9s in the league. But if it doesn't gel right, then does it matter that you have the most talented players for it? To me, it doesn't. And they could not figure it out this year. And I know that there's a lot of discussion, obviously, about the coaching staff. I think it'll be interesting to see what happens there. They're all at the end of their contract, so it'll be interesting from that standpoint. But at some point, and I'm not saying whether this coaching staff were to return or not, at some point, this has to be put on the players. I mean, it was Paul Maurice here or Dave Lowry's group. The players have to be held accountable. And one thing that's really struck me over the last couple of weeks, and it's easy to say, I think, when the heat goes off, but this is a group that seems to recognize the role that they have played in it, or things that need to change. I think that this is the most honest that we have seen a number of these players in their assessments of it, and that there needs to be change, and recognizing and shouldering some of that things, whether it be preparation, attitude, if things need that will to buy in, it needs to change if you're going to have success. But this has been, for everybody, this has been a disappointing season, because nobody would have predicted that at the beginning of May, they would be wrapping up after 82 games. You would have thought that at the very least, we would have seen an exciting first round matchup.
Sarah Orlesky is our guest Saturday morning. We're live on our YouTube channel. We're live on all of our social media platforms. It's the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. One final Illegal Curve post-game show coming at you tomorrow afternoon, right around 3:30 after the finale between the Jets and the Kraken. Dave, you're on mute.
Damn it. Anyways, Sarah, what I was going to say is, last year, one of the biggest things the Jets needed to address was the defense. And they went out and they did that, but they acquired guys with term. And that's one of the things we've talked about on this show quite a bit, is the log jam it created. Now, one of the benefits, I guess, if you could use that word, of COVID was the fact that guys were seen that wouldn't necessarily have gotten to the NHL maybe this year because of that. So even though guys weren't injured because of COVID, obviously they had to be out. So you saw Dylan Sandberg, you saw Johnny Kovacevic, you saw Declan Chisholm, you saw young defensemen who, and you obviously have Billy Heinola, you have in him. So do you think that is probably the area that gets addressed this summer? Because of course it's ironic, it looked like it was resolved and that it made sense the moves they made, but of course because the guys had term, it did create this jam, because you've now got these guys, and again, some of these guys are still waiver exempt next year, so you don't have to do something. But a guy like Dylan Sandberg, for example, has shown that he's capable of playing at the NHL level. So do you think that area is one that gets looked at and is like a hard look in terms of within this audit, and says, okay, we need to make moves to clear space in terms of getting these young guys into the lineup?
Well, I think that it gives them options, right? And whether or not that means you're going to try to trade players with term in order to bring all things up, I don't know whether or not having a really young back end, although good from a contract standpoint and what you're looking at for the salary cap, the grass isn't always greener, guys. Know that. I mean, how many times talk about integrating number of young players in? Well, we know that the defense has been an issue for this team, and when you look at kind of in order of weaknesses, that it has been for a couple of seasons. And so if you bring in all of this youth, great, but is that necessarily need? And fans don't like hearing about intangibles as well and everything. But if you're talking about trying to get this group to play cohesively and trying to get there be the everybody pulling in the same direction, I think that you can't overlook that some of those players that are on term also bring, and fans hate, I think, intangibles. I know it's not fun for it, but going back to that idea of it's a puzzle and it's got to fit together. And I think that there is a benefit to having it. So maybe you do integrate a couple of young players, or maybe you've got one that's in the top six and another that sits as that 7th D. We know they don't like to rush players into it. They like them to get the experience, because in small sample sizes, you can look and say, this player looks great. Why isn't he in there? Which is always the tendency to do, regardless of position, really. You go, well, that's great that he looked good in a 6-game sample size. Does he look good in an 82-game sample size? And when you're doing it, and there is a benefit to having, obviously, the Moose in town as well, that you're not having to go out to the East Coast in order to try to fly guys in. And so you do have a little bit more flexibility. But I think it also gives Jets management the option that perhaps if you are looking to make some trades, maybe we see one of the younger players get moved out as part of a package to bring their ones in. And I mean, I have no idea if that's something that they would consider. I'm just spitballing here, but that sort of idea that you have different players that you can maybe package up, again, whether veteran or youth, or to try to find that right mix. Because I don't think getting rid of necessarily, a couple of guys that have term, I don't know if that's the right answer either. You need to lessen the workload that Connor Hellebuck has. And I'm not just talking about games started, which could be its a whole other conversation, but obviously the number of shots that he faces per game far exceeds any other, or per season, far exceeds any other goaltender that we're seeing. And you can't continue to do that year after year with him. It hasn't paid off. He is only one man. He can only do so much, regardless of if he is on his game or not. And I think that you need to be more concerned about the collective group and what you can do to lessen also the workload and what he's facing as well. So I think it'll be interesting to see how they approach. That's why, can I go back to how fascinating I think this offseason could be and should be for the Jets.
Yeah, it will absolutely be fascinating, Sarah. I mean, to me, one of the big things is there's precedent in the NHL now for a change in leadership on a roster, even if the previous leadership group stays on the roster. We saw it happen in San Jose a number of years ago, where Joe Thornton was captain, and then they decided it was time for a bit of a changing of the guard, but Thornton stuck around. Same with in LA with Dustin Brown. He was captain, and there was a changing of the guard. You know, from a Jets perspective, I mean, Blake Wheeler wears his emotions so visibly, and you can see them when he interacts with the media post game, that he's just, the way he's wired. I mean, we all know this, and that's, that's just what he is as a human. That's how he is as a character. Do you think it could benefit Blake Wheeler as a player at this stage of his career to maybe reduce that pressure that is on his shoulders by changing the captaincy of this team for next year while still having him be a contributor to the roster?
I would say first about Blake that when you look at the way that it's played, and I know that it's impossible to not look at the contract that goes along with it, but when Blake Wheeler eventually retires, my line is always, I said, I will describe him as being a player that did not cheat you for effort. And whether he gets used in a first role capacity in that first power play, and you think he's playing too many minutes, or however they decide to utilize him, it's not his fault, and he never cheats you for effort. He always is out there giving all. I don't know, you reference Thornton and Dustin Brown. I don't know whether or not Blake is the type of person that would be able to relinquish the and still be able to. And I don't know. And I mean, I've never asked him, but I don't
think anybody's going to ask him, Sarah.
I'm not going to be that one to do it. So feel free. That'll be an email question submitted in. But in all seriousness, I mean, that's obviously for any player that would be a challenge, and I think you have to be a certain type of personality leader to be able to look at it in that scenario. And I just don't know whether or not that's something that, even though it's worked in other organizations, if it's something that would work here with it. But I do think that even though he wears the C, I think that you see the younger players coming up now take more leadership and take more ownership than what we've seen in the past. I don't think that there's maybe such a gap between the leadership group and the rest of the players as maybe we saw in earlier years with it. And it's tough to truly gauge. I was saying this when Brendan Dillon and Nate Schmidt were in talking with the media the other day. So it's not that you ever truly know what goes on in the room, but at least when we were in the room, and Dave in particular, I mean, you'd be able to appreciate this being in there almost every day, that you at least have a better sense. Right? Mm-hmm. You can pick up on little things and just see the dynamics of how the room works a little bit. And so we've been without that for a few years, but just in the way that players are speaking now, you can tell that there are players that are more comfortable in their role with the team. I think Kyle Connor has made leaps and bounds in that area, and rightfully so. And you sometimes forget, I think, just how young these guys still are, just in terms of overall age. And so I think that we're seeing guys that don't necessarily wear letters step up and take more ownership. And I think that's what the Jets have. That's what the Jets will need, especially if this leadership group continues the way that it is right now.
Sarah, you just mentioned, Kyle Connor, and, unfortunately he didn't score 47 yesterday, but Jets fans everywhere are hoping that he's able to score 4 tomorrow afternoon versus the
Let me tell you, so are we for a 1 o'clock Jets Kraken game on Sunday.
I was mentioning, I was texting Dennis to see if I could stay with him in Kelowna. I've also been texting Kyle Connor just to tell him, Sarah would really appreciate if you could score 4 goals.
So, by the way, so it's a lucky Manitoban who would win $100,000. So that also would be nice.
You want to leave a great impression with Jets fans for the final and going into the off season. Let's see a couple natural hat tricks. Let's see Casey get 4.
I mean, gotta send Dennis off right. Like, we need a Connor 4-goal game to get 50 goals. I mean, Dennis deserves that.
And we
need at least one bang bang.
I was just going to say that we need at least a couple goals close others that we can hear a bang bang going out.
Sarah, I just wanted to ask you on the topic of Connor. Obviously, sets the you were talking about it last night on the broadcast. Sets the single season Jets 2.0 record of 92 points. He's even Steven 46. We all know that if he plays those 3 games and he isn't in COVID protocol, he most likely has 50 just based on the way he's been putting the puck in the net. But when you look at, this season as a whole, the goals and assists obviously stand out. But is it the fact that he has taken the overall game? Because we've talked about it a lot on a legal curve, like on the penalty kill. Like in previous years, you didn't see Connor on the penalty kill. But not only has he been out on the penalty kill, he's been excellent on the penalty kill. Sure, it was, struggling earlier on in the season, but he's been getting those chances along with Adam Lowry. Is that kind of what would stand out to you looking at Kyle Connor, in addition to the amazing individual numbers of 92 plus points? Is that what kind of stands out? Just the fact that he's taken his game to the next level, and he's become one of the Jets' best overall players.
Absolutely. And it's funny because you mentioned the point total, and we always discuss how he doesn't get enough attention outside this market, and he quietly goes about doing it. But could you imagine if he was in a market, if he was in a Toronto, if he was in a New York, really, if he was in the East somewhere, he would be getting so much more attention with acknowledgement. But even from someone who covers the team all the time, I sometimes have to do a double take and go, wow, he really has that. He's really 90 plus points. He goes about it quietly, but so effectively, I think, as well. And it's his overall game, and it's everything I mentioned about how I think he's taken a step in leadership and how much more comfortable he looks speaking out and confident in it. I love the addition of having him back on the penalty kill. And when you say that the penalty kill, yes, it struggled early on. And I think that, for a lot of it, it was deceptive if you just looked at the overall number, what it is, because once you get in the hole with penalty kill in terms of your percentage, it is so challenging to be able to make it out. So I always tried to take it more in segments as opposed to the overall season. But his commitment to not only the offensive game, but both ends of the ice, I just think that he has continued to develop. And I think that that's something that Jets fans should be so excited about, that when you see, and I think it was a substantial jump that he took this year. And so then you don't see him plateauing. And I don't think that he will going into next season. So there's a lot to be excited about, but I love the addition of having him back, the penalty kill, and being able to be aggressive on it. I've liked their additions that they made on that this year. And I think that he's certainly someone that Jets fans, like I said, can be so excited about seeing next, late September, early October, about what he can do, because he's certainly one of the key pieces, obviously, for this team going forward for years to come.
Okay, well, Sarah, even though as he asked you about Dennis Mayak, I'm gonna end this with Dennis, because we're gonna have him on our Monday show when we do an end of season wrap up. So we're gonna have Dennis, unless he has a dinner. He did already warn me, but I said we'll join you at dinner, Dennis, if you need to. We're not adverse to that. So we'll do the show from wherever you're having dinner. You and Bev, she's welcome on as well. So it's not an issue.
That's what you need. Yes. Let me tell you.
Sarah, it only took like 2.5 hours of begging Dennis for him to agree to come on. So I was expecting to be begging for like 7 or 8 hours.
I was going to say, Sarah, Bev is the brains of that operation. I think that's what you were going to say, right?
That's what I might have been implying. You get the two of them together, let me tell you, we want some good entertainment. Dennis can be very funny. Bev can certainly lead the way. Never mind hold her own.
Yeah, no, she's very nice. And so Just to maybe end the chat, just what are probably your best Dennis Mayak memories? I know, like I said, you touched on a little bit, but just some more thoughts on Dennis and as he rides out into the sunset. And again, he's not done, like you said, he's going to the Worlds, but from his Jets perspective.
But he's just the dedication. We said, I'll try not to repeat everything that I said earlier, but he's just, he's at every practice, which you don't always see. You don't always see for your broadcast crew. He's at every practice. He's so prepared for it. He's one of my favorite people to text with at night going, oh, are you watching this game? Oh, did you see what happened here? He's so in tune with everything. But years ago, it was 2011, right when the team came back. We ended up, we had the opportunity to go up in CF-18s. And it was fantastic. And Dennis went first, and in the morning, and then I went in the afternoon. And all I said, whatever we got to, 5 point something G's, and we had the same pilot. And I just remember saying to the pilot, "What did Dennis get to?" And I'm arbitrarily picking, but it might have been 5.4. And I said, I need to beat him by 0.1. That was because while I was up there, once we actually got up there and I realized how intense it is, when the pilot would say, "How are you doing?" I just need to beat Dennis. I just need to get 0.1. And when we hit 0.1, I said, I'm good.
You pressed the parachute button at that point.
Pretty much. Oh my goodness. Are you sure we can? No, I just need to beat Dennis. But you know what? Dennis is, go back, he walks me to my car every night to make sure that I get there safely. He is just...
Okay, that's just very cute.
I kid you not, he is the best. And I've had so many opportunities to work with so many wonderful people over my career and at TSN. But as I go back to again, he is just so genuine. And I know, we had a bit of a wrap party yesterday with our crew so that everyone could have their chance to see him. And it was so important for him because a number of people on the Jets on TSN crew had been there since the beginning. And he talked about what it meant for him being from Manitoba, obviously, to be able to come back and do this job for as long as he has. And he takes great pride in being from Manitoba, takes great pride in having been a part of this broadcast from the beginning. He knows how much it means to Jets fans to be able to have an NHL team here and the love that they have for it. And we're truly, truly blessed that for 11 years we were able to have him, whether it was at the rink with us or on the TV as well. And I hope it's just a little promo I have to do. So tomorrow, that game, not only is it game 82 for the Jets, but we are going to have a ton of stuff on Dennis for Dennis. So if you're on the fence about watching the Kraken Jets for it, don't be. It's definitely, hopefully the Jets, with the way that they've been able to find the back of the net recently, hopefully they're able to give fans another big reason to cheer. But then also we're going to pay tribute to Dennis throughout the broadcast as well.
One final game tomorrow, but I think the game will be overshadowed by the broadcast and the salute to the career of our good friend Dennis Mayak. And Sarah, you'll be at the forefront of that salute, and it'll be a fascinating broadcast. I was going to say, it's going to be a tough one for you to get through, I'm sure. But
I'm definitely going to have a Kleenex box beside me. I promise I won't cry too much, but I probably will cry a little bit.
As he promised, just like you promised Mess not that you weren't going to cry too much there, Gretz. You'll do the same thing.
Oh,
yeah, because me and Messier have a lot of things in common, right, Drew?
Tomato. But I used to always, when Oprah used to have her show on, used to be the ugly cry, and so I used to try not to do the ugly cry because I think I'll probably bring stress balls, maybe fidget spinners, something to try to distract myself while doing it, because I get very emotional when talking about it. And I know, like I said, he does too, because just how much he's valued being a part of of this team and this city and this fan base.
We'll watch it. We're looking forward to it. Sarah, thanks for joining us. This was fantastic as always. Have a great broadcast tomorrow, and we'll do it again real soon.
Thanks so much. Always enjoy spending some of my Saturday with you guys.
Take care,
Thanks,
Sarah.
Sarah.
Let's head to break. Hour number 2 of the Illegal Curve Hockey Show up next. We're live on YouTube and all of our social media platforms.
Keeping Winnipeg laughing for over 30 years. Rumors, Canada's longest-running comedy club, bringing you the biggest laughs from the best comedians on the planet. Jerry Seinfeld, Chris Rock, Jon Stewart, Dennis Miller, Brad Garrett, the greats, and all the up-and-comers too. When was the last time you laughed out loud? Make it a great night out with friends, or book your office or birthday party. Even a fundraising event at Rumors. Get all the details and dates on upcoming shows at rumorscomedyclub.com.
Hi, Ez. A strange question for you. But why are you lying on the ground being crushed by a piano?
Well, Drew, I definitely tried to carry this baby grand piano down the stairs by myself, and somehow I failed miserably.
Right. Yeah, sorry. That was a silly question on my part. My apologies. Would you like me to call Rolly's Transfer Moving and Storage to help you move the piano? They are the most experienced piano moving company in Winnipeg, after all.
Yes, please call Rolly's and hurry. This piano is very, very heavy.
Rolly's Transfer Moving and Storage offers stress-free residential moving services while taking great care of your personal belongings, including your piano. At Rolly's, no job is too big or too small. For more information, visit rollys.com.
Hi, it's Drew from Illegal Curve here. Selling your home can be stressful, but it wasn't for me. Thanks to my friends at Zappia Group Realty, they made the process so easy. My home sold within 48 hours and with multiple offers. Zappia Group Realty took care of everything with their exquisite customer service and attention to detail. If you want to sell your home for more in less time, get started by talking to Frank and Mauro Zappia of Zappia Group Realty. Online at zappiagroup.com.
Hey, it's Aaron from Bernstein's Deli.
That's right, Ezzy. I'm the guy who makes all your sandwich dreams come true.
So when you think Illegal Curve, what comes to you?
How about juicy chicken schnitzel, grilled salami, fried onions, melted cheddar cheese, and honey mustard on toasted thick-cut city rye bread?
Man, that's like the holy grail of sandwiches.
And so it shall be known as the Illegal Curve Sandwich.
The Illegal Curve Sandwich. Try it today at Bernstein's Deli. Find us at Corridon and Lanark or online at bernsteinsdeli.com.
Hey, Drew.
Ezzy, whoa, what a smile!
Yeah, I got my crowns done at Linden Market Dental Center, and they whiten my teeth.
I see.
They're so bright that every time I smile, they go...
We have hockey tonight. Do you have a mouth guard to protect those pearly whites?
I sure do.
Whoa, they even ting through the mouth guard.
Linden Market Dental Center covers all your dental needs from restorative to cosmetic dentistry and will fit you with a sports guard for that active lifestyle. 877 Waverly. See lindenmarketdental.com.
So you're a pizza person, you married a wing person, but somehow your kids are salad people. You can't pick your fam, but you can pick your BP meal deal, starting from $18.99 for takeout or delivery at bostonpizza.com.
Hour number 2 of the Illegal Curve Hockey Show starts now. It's brought to you by our friends at Betway, one of the most trusted voices in sports betting, both in Canada and all around the world. Betway is the sports betting app that puts you, the customer, at the forefront with a large selection of betting options and sports, as well as strong promotion and fair odds. What are you waiting for? Head on over to Betway and bet your way. Must be 19 years or older to play. Please play responsibly. Drew Mindell, Dave Minuk, Ezra Ginsburg with you on this Saturday morning. A big thank you to Sarah Orlesky for just joining us. A fantastic interview. Sarah is always filled with insight, and especially apropos as she was able to speak so gracefully and so beautifully about Dennis Mayak, who, of course, will be the subject of tomorrow's game between the Jets and the Kraken. He's almost the game secondary to the tribute and the salute that'll be to Dennis, his final game as the voice of the Winnipeg Jets on TSN. He'll still be around, of course, with some international and World Junior broadcasts for TSN, so that'll be good. Daniel Fink, Manitoba Moose broadcaster, at the bottom of the hour, so you can stay tuned with that. Wanted to touch on the Pierre-Luc Dubois situation, because we heard Elliot Friedman talk about it earlier this week as well, when it came to his comments last Saturday on the broadcast about Dubois and his future. And he expanded further on those comments on the 32 Thoughts podcast. If you haven't heard his thoughts, it's available on illegalcurve.com. That's our website, in case you're unfamiliar. You can check it out there to hear what Elliot and Jeff Mayak had to say about Pierre-Luc Dubois. How do you guys think this situation's going to work itself out? I mean, our friend Murat Atash of The Athletic sort of had laid out the 4 options. Dubois filing for arbitration, and then that'll either result in a 1-year or a 2-year deal. If it does go through arbitration, he could sign an offer sheet. That's a possibility. There's people in Montreal, of course, salivating about that possibility of Dubois going to Montreal, the Jets signing him long-term, or the 4th option, of course, being a trade. Can the Jets afford to not sign Pierre-Luc Dubois long-term, given what it cost them in Patrick Laine and Jack Roslovic to acquire him? Or do they have to get a deal done, not at any dollar figure, but at almost any dollar figure, Ezzy?
Yeah, they have to sign him, of course. And, all due respect to Elliot, I mean, he wasn't really saying much even on the podcast. Like I listened to that part of the podcast with Jeff Mayak, but Elliot was saying things like, I've been hearing just, pay attention to it. Well, obviously we're going to pay attention to it. He's a pending free agent, right? So it was kind of like, what is it about this? Like, is he saying that it's possibly going to be contentious? Like, he wasn't really saying much. Like, he was saying that, there's a possibility that it's not going to be a long-term deal, but he wasn't hinting at that either, because he was saying, like, I don't think the Jets are going to trade Dubois, or Dubois asked for a trade, or, Dubois wants to sign a long short-term contract. So all I'm saying, I'm not knocking Elliot. Obviously, he's a fantastic reporter. He's one of the best. I'm just saying that, there wasn't really anything of substance there, I guess, if that makes sense. Like, it wasn't there was no indication either way, right, that Dubois is going to sign a short-term deal or a long-term deal. Obviously, Kevin Cheveldayoff and the Jets want to sign Dubois to a long-term deal. Like, why wouldn't you, right? Like, you've got 2 more years before unrestricted free agency. So if you're the team, like, it doesn't make any sense that you would want to sign him to a 2 or 3 year deal, and then he becomes an unrestricted free agent. And then, you have a big problem a couple of years from now, right? So, I mean, I think that there's no question that the Jets want to sign him to a long-term deal. Now, I mean, in terms of, does Pierre-Luc Dubois want to sign a long-term deal? I mean, I don't know the answer to that. I mean, him and his agent are the ones that know the answer to that, right? But he said all the right things when he was interviewed earlier this week, right? Like, his dad's been here for a while with the Moose. Like, I do think Pierre-Luc Dubois, from all accounts, enjoys the city and enjoys playing the Jets. Like, he's, created some friendships over the last, year and a bit since he's become a member of the Jets. So, yeah, I mean, are we talking about an 8-year deal, $8 million a year, $8.5 million a year? Maybe. I mean, I think that's kind of what we said, right? It's probably somewhere in the $7.5 to $8.5 million range, on a long-term deal. Could there be a short-term deal? Yes, but obviously, that's not ideal for the Jets.
Dave M., I mean, this is in an off season of great tumultuousness for the Jets. Not a word, but you know what I'm saying. This is another one of those.
It should be a word,
pieces.
though, Drew.
Yeah, tumultuousness really should be a word. It just rolls off the tongue. So I'm going to incorporate it into the Mindell.
You're not going to see it on Wordle, though. It's more than 5 letters, but it's still a good word.
Letters. Yeah, no, exactly. Actually, Ezzy was today's word on Wordle, just with an extra Z there. EZZZY. That was weird. Nice. I don't know why it was.
Well, it obviously wasn't, but if anything, you inflated my ego a little bit there, Drew, so I appreciate it.
The way my ratio, Ezzy, is 100 negative comments towards you for every 1 nice comment. So prepare to get that ego deflated a little bit. Anyways, Dave M., we'll let you opine on what you think is going to happen here.
Yeah, I mean, look, I didn't think that Friedman provided any great insight. I'm with Ezzy on that one. I think he just kind of all he said was if you think about it, he basically said people are talking and they're telling me to listen. Now, the interesting
thing fit in perfectly well with the Kevin Cheveldayoff press conference.
Yeah, that was you're always having conversations. So, like I said, I posted it on illegalcurve.com. I transcribed it and I listened to it numerous times as a result of having to transcribe it, just so people wouldn't have to necessarily. They wanted to read it, couldn't listen.
How's your transcription app coming along yet? Have you
Well,
been able to master that yet?
No, I mean, I'm not gonna reveal my secret, but I do have a very good way of getting it done quickly. But anyways, the point is, I pay someone. So the point is that he did say, I think the Jets would like to sign him long term, but I don't know how he feels about that. And if he's willing to do a long term, what are the Jets going to do here? And I just had a couple of people say to me, watch this one. Well, okay, that's great. I wonder if those people live in Montreal, because every indication for every paper, blog, whatever you want to call it, it's crazy to see these reports. And, really the irony, of course, is that in the end, Montreal ended up losing Kotkaniemi and not really having anything much to show for it. So, I don't know that I wouldn't expect an offer sheet. I wouldn't expect anything like that. I think he's going to get signed. I think his dad working for the organization and his parents being here, I think that factors in. Like I said, I thought it was interesting when, the whole thing with COVID happened, and he wasn't with the Jets at the time. But the point is, he came to Winnipeg, and he was living here a bit with his parents, right? So there is that familial connection to the city already. And so you wonder if it makes it easier to set down roots when you have parents here and that sort of thing and live long term. Look, I don't blame the kid also for not saying wholeheartedly yesterday, I want to be here, and it doesn't matter. Like he has leverage, and that's one of the points that they made, him and Friedman and Mayak made in their in their chat on the 32 Thoughts podcast, that he is arbitration eligible, and he has a bit of a hammer, and he's only 2 years away from being an unrestricted free agent. So, from a player's perspective, he can get paid, and he's going to get paid very well. And he also wants to know, and I think that was probably my finishing thought on that interview, was what is going to be the long-term vision, right? Is he going to sign here for 5 to 8 years and say, what's this core of this team going to look like? Is this team going to be in a rebuild, or are they going to be going for it still, right? You've got Hellebuck expiring, relatively soon. You got Wheeler, Scheifele. So those deals. Now, of course, you still got Connor, you still got Morrissey, still got Lowry, you still got Perfetti, who's going to get his, first big deal. So there is a lot of positivity in theory, but I suspect that there's going to want to be a conversation with the management to find out the direction of the team, and then they'll probably go from there.
There's so many fascinating pieces about this Winnipeg Jets offseason. It really will. We said it earlier in our number one, saying that, for the team to watch this offseason, really, I'd say there's two teams that are going to be the most fascinating: the Jets and the Vegas Golden Knights. And, it's no coincidence that those are probably the two teams that are the most disappointing teams in the NHL this season. The Islanders are I'm going to say, a step behind, because they have a bit of an asterisk with starting with 13 games straight on the road, and then getting really worse than any other team, no matter what anyone will say, impacted by COVID at the beginning of the year. If you actually look at the Islanders' record in the second half of the year, they were playing at a percentage that you would have expected for the majority of the year. So I don't expect big changes on Long Island.
Columbus is another team too that I would look at, just with the Line A contract situation, the goaltending situation.
Fair enough, that Columbus, but I think Line A has had a very good second half of the year, so I think they'll be happy to sign him long term if they can.
No, I'm not disputing that they want to sign him long term. Right. I just don't necessarily know that, with his history of the bridge deals, right? I'm just not sure, what that contract's going to look like. Also, he's missed 30 games this year. He was a point per game player, and I wish I had him, in my hockey pool, because he didn't play the last 5 or 6 games. But I'm just saying that the Line A contract, I think, is going to be maybe a little bit more difficult than they would like, because he's going to make a lot of money like Dubois.
Yeah, absolutely. Goal scorers get paid. That's basically how it works in the NHL, is they get paid. So it's just another fascinating piece to this off-season puzzle that it is for the Winnipeg Jets. Let me ask you guys this, and we're going to obviously get into it deeper throughout the course of this offseason. Does Mark Scheifele begin next year as a member of the Winnipeg Jets in your mind? Well,
just the fact, Drew, that you're asking that question, right, is pretty nuts.
And you're not immediately saying yes, to the answer.
Exactly. But you really wouldn't have asked that question seriously a year ago. You probably wouldn't even have asked that question, 3 or 4 months ago. But I've been on the record, and when I say that, I got to preface that with saying, when I say I'm on the record, that usually means don't take what I'm about to say seriously. But in all seriousness, I do think that, the Jets should look hard at trading Mark Scheifele for a number one defenseman. That to me is what the Jets need the most. If you're asking about personnel, like we could talk all day about, do the Jets need to, re-sign Zach Sanford for the fourth line, or, do they need to trade, one of Brendan Dillon or Nate Schmidt to make a little bit more room for some of the younger defensemen? That's one thing. But again, it goes back to what I've said so many times. Go back to look at the last 10 Stanley Cup winners, right? Like every one of those teams has a number one defenseman. Tampa Bay, Victor Hedman, Washington, John Carlson, St. Louis, Alex Pietrangelo. Like just, go back to the Detroit teams, Nicholas Lidstrom, Pittsburgh, Chris Letang. Like they need
Kings at Drew Doughty.
Well, Kings, Drew Doughty. I mean, Chicago. I mean, they had Duncan Keith and Brent Seabrook, right? Yeah. But like, I mean, Nicholas Hjalmarsson was pretty good too. But, and again, I mean, I think Josh Morrissey is an unbelievable defenseman. Anybody who's listened to the show knows all of us, praise Morrissey regularly. But I think they need, a top 20 defenseman, put it that way. And I think that is something that they need, more of a shutdown type. I mean, sure, you want some offense, but I think you could get that by trading Mark Scheifele with his contract. I mean, we know that, he probably deserves to make a little bit more money. Maybe not as much as he did, when he was putting up 82 and 84 points. But I guess so, to answer your question, Drew, I don't know the answer to that, right? Because trading Mark Scheifele a year and a half after you traded Patrick Laine seems like crazy, almost absurd. But you wonder, like, I guess it comes down to, like, do you think he fits into what you're trying to do, right? Like, can you have Mark Scheifele as your number one or number two center with his defensive deficiencies on this roster? Look at how the Jets have played, the last 3 games without Scheifele. I mean, they didn't play very well on the road trip with Scheifele out of the lineup, but I guess I would say that even though I'm not going to give a definitive answer here, I do think that there is the possibility that he is traded. I don't know if that will actually happen, but I imagine that, the Jets are entertaining, or if they haven't already, they're probably going to entertain that possibility just because if you talk about trade chips, Dave, he's the biggest trade chip that you have.
Well, I mean, from a contract perspective, his contract is excellent. I mean, what team isn't going to want a guy who does what he can do offensively? Now, defensively, of course, he has his deficiencies, and that's something that he needs to work on. Maybe not necessarily with Adam Oates, maybe with someone who actually teaches defense would probably be, a good use of Mark Scheifele's time this summer, I would imagine. And then, I mean, I really don't know the answer because, it's what we're, you're looking, what was the whole point of acquiring Pierre-Luc Dubois? Pierre-Luc Dubois, I don't know, is a number one center. He doesn't put up the points really to do that. Now, maybe we'll see, but I mean, you need a guy who can produce. Now you need a guy who's going to be responsible defensively, which is why I think it's imperative for Mark Scheifele to show that he can make that change. I mean, again, this team will worship this guy, right? I mean, the city worships him already to a certain degree. Now he's become a little bit more, he's
controversial.
Not controversial, but he's drawn divisive? A little more. No, that's more you. But he's drawn more like slings than and arrows than he used to, I would suggest. But the reality is, he's still well regarded by many fans in the city. Maybe they don't love his commercials so much, but the reality is that I think he can produce, right? Even on a down year, he still produced over a point a game. Now, of course, his points per game, if you look at what it cost you from the analytics, it wasn't good. So he needs to be a much better all-around player if he wants to. Remember, I mean, he was a guy who wants to be in the conversation with Matthews and McDavid. Nobody forced him to put those words in his mouth. He said those words. Well, if you do, then you have to be better than what he was. He wasn't good enough from a team perspective. And this is a team game as much as it is, helped by individuality. So I think that, I agree with Ezzy. Like, I think Josh Morrissey is an excellent number 2. I think the Jets could do well with a number 1. But then, of course, if you remove Mark Scheifele, and then you're left up the middle with Pierre-Luc Dubois, Adam Lowry, let's say you re-sign Paul Stastny,
Cole
and then
Perfetti,
but they've shown that they want Perfetti on the wing. David Gustafson, you're thin. You're maybe more defensively responsible. I mean, maybe you're more position, again, it becomes a function of, can you have an excellent goaltender in Connor Hellebuck, right? We saw his numbers were still good. If you become a more defensively responsible team, do you have more chances by preventing the ones against more effectively. So, I mean, again, like I said, that is, and especially like, as he just said, if you trade for a number one defenseman and you have a number one paired with Josh Morrissey, and that strengthens everybody else because they've now moved down a notch in terms of their expectations. Well, maybe as a more defensively responsible team, you're able to, might not be the most exciting, but what has exciting hockey really gotten in this Jets club in terms of going deep, which is what this is all about. So, I mean, I guess the one thing, and I'm going to do a quick segment into the Moose because, of course, we've got Daniel Fink coming up in 7 minutes. But this is a team that wins by committee. This isn't a team that has, I mean, Jeff Malott has the most points, got 23 goals, 17 assists for 40 points. But the reality is they don't have the upper echelon. Jeff Malott is the top scorer for the Moose. No, 1 second. Jeff Malott, just 1 second. The point is, Jeff Malott is the number one scorer for the Moose, but he's 96 in the AHL. The reality is, if you have balance and depth, you can win. And I
not
think
at the NHL level, I don't believe, Dave.
Well,
I think at the NHL level, and I totally acknowledge what you're saying. At the NHL level, you need stars.
I'm not saying you don't. I'm not saying you don't, but I'm saying that I think that if you can create good, I mean, you have stars, Drew. Nikolai Ehlers is a star. Kyle Connor is a star. Cole Perfetti could be a star. You have stars in this roster.
Pierre-Luc Dubois is a star.
Yeah, but I'm saying, like, if you have solid center depth, responsible defensively center depth, playing with stars, then you're taking possession of the puck and you're getting it up to the wingers, guys like Kyle Connor, guys like Nikolai Ehlers, a guy like Cole Perfetti who doesn't have the foot speed necessarily, but he's got the acumen. I think then you maybe are doing something. But
and just to back Dave up here again, I don't think there's a right or wrong answer here, Drew, because I think for the most part, yes, that applies. Like you go through, the last 10, 15, whatever Stanley Cup winners, most of those teams have stars. But I would, if you want to just play devil's advocate here, the New York Islanders, I mean, is Matt Barzal a star? Maybe. Like, was Jordan Eberle a star? I mean, they're the example of a team that is kind of similar to what Dave's talking about with the Moose, right? Like good defense, good goaltending. You have a lot of good players like, Josh Bailey, Anders Lee, players like that. And you guys probably know where I'm going with. I mean, look at the 2000, 2003 New Jersey Devils. Like Patrick Elias, Scott Gomez, Brian Gionta. I mean, they happen to have all-star future Hall of Fame defensemen. That's the big difference. Scott Niedermayer, Scott Stevens, right? Like, so that's my whole point, Dave. You gotta, if you're not going to be a team that has the superstar forward talent, like, the Toronto Maple Leafs, right? With Austin Matthews and Mitch Marner, John Tavares, William Nylander, the list goes on. I mean, I agree with Dave. And that's why I think you have to look at what's your strength. Your strength right now is your forward group. And again, I don't think it's as simple, guys, as just saying trade Scheifele for, Shea Theodore, or, trade Scheifele 1-for-1 for, a guy that I've told you, Dave, that I really like, I would like to see in the Jets uniform is Zach Werenski. Like, I think he's a number one defenseman. I don't think Columbus is trading Zach Werenski, by the way, now that Seth Jones has been traded to Chicago. But I think that, to your point, Dave, and you can jump back in here, but I do think that you can win in the NHL without having, 7 or 8 superstar forwards.
Yeah, no, and that's all I was saying. And I look, I agree with Drew, but as well. So that's why I'm saying it's a bit of a tomato, like it's chicken and an egg. It's what are you going to focus on? Now, here's the other element that we've got to factor in. You keep Mark Scheifele, so you have a star in terms of what he can do. I mean, he's a number one center, right? He can produce like a number one center. There's no question about that. Defensively, he doesn't play like a number one center, but offensively, he's a number one center. Now, the reality is maybe if you have a new system, a new coaching staff, you have a summer training camp to work on it, and you have something in place with that talent, then you have, to be honest with you, then you have real depth. I mean, look, maybe what you end up having is Scheifele, Dubois, Stasny, Lowry, right?
Well, but they never went that way. They haven't gone that way.
I understand.
Acquired Dubois.
Drew, hence the reason why I just said a new coaching staff. If you have a new coaching staff, they're making decisions different. They're not going to say, we're going to come in as the new coaching staff. We're going to make the same decisions the old coaching staff made, because that worked out really well. So the point I'm trying to make is that maybe they say Adam Lowry, 10 to 15 goals a year, that's a fourth line center. You're still going to go up and shut down, these top upper echelon guys, but you're not going to play in certain roles. And that will give to Paul Stasny, who can produce probably as a third line center potentially. That's all I'm saying.
You know what? I think it'll be fascinating to see or hopefully hear from Mark Scheifele on Monday with the exit interviews, because we haven't heard from Mark Scheifele, obviously, since he's been out of the Jets lineup. Injured players don't talk. So if Mark Scheifele speaks on Monday, and frankly, I would hope that he would, I think his comments, and I know he doesn't say anything of any consequence typically. I wonder if, this might be the exception where he would sort of provide some insight into what he's thinking in what has obviously been a disappointing season for himself personally and for the team as a whole. Again, reminder, special edition of the Illegal Curve Hockey Show, Monday night starting at 8 o'clock. Subscribe to the YouTube channel now. Set a reminder so that you don't miss anything on Monday as we break down everything that is said, everything that happens in the final media availability for the players, at least, of the 2021-22 regular season. This segment of the program was brought to you by Betway. It's simple, fun, and safe to bet with Betway. So head on over to Betway and bet your way. Must be 19 years or older to play. One team in Winnipeg at the professional hockey level is going to the playoffs. That's the Manitoba Moose. They'll face off against the Milwaukee Admirals. Daniel Fink, broadcaster for the Moose, the voice of the Moose, joins us next to talk about the Moose Admirals first round playoff series. Don't go anywhere, much more to come. It's the Illegal Curve Hockey Show, Saturday morning. We're live on YouTube and all of our social media platforms.
Keeping Winnipeg laughing for over 30 years. Rumors, Canada's longest-running comedy club, bringing you the biggest laughs from the best comedians on the planet. Jerry Seinfeld, Chris Rock, Jon Stewart, Dennis Miller, Brad Garrett, the greats, and all the up-and-comers too. When was the last time you laughed out loud? Make it a great night out with friends, or book your office or birthday party. Even a fundraising event at Rumors. Get all the details and dates on upcoming shows at rumorscomedyclub.com.
Hi, Ez. A strange question for you. But why are you lying on the ground being crushed by a piano?
Well, Drew, I definitely tried to carry this baby grand piano down the stairs by myself, and somehow I failed miserably.
Right. Yeah, I'm sorry. That was a silly question on my part. My apologies. Would you like me to call Rolly's Transfer Moving and Storage to help you move the piano? They are the most experienced piano moving company in Winnipeg, after all.
Yes, please call Rolly's and hurry. This piano is very, very heavy.
Rolly's Transfer Moving and Storage offers stress-free residential moving services while taking great care of your personal belongings, including your piano. At Rolly's, no job is too big or too small. For more information, visit rollys.com.
Hi, it's Drew from Illegal Curve here. Selling your home can be stressful, but it wasn't for me. Thanks to my friends at Zappia Group Realty, they made the process so easy. My home sold within 48 hours and with multiple offers. Zappia Group Realty took care of everything with their exquisite customer service and attention to detail. If you want to sell your home for more in less time, get started by talking to Frank and Mauro Zappia of Zappia Group Realty. Online at zappiagroup.com.
Hey, it's Aaron from Bernstein's Deli.
That's right, Ezzy. I'm the guy who makes all your sandwich dreams come true.
So when you think Illegal Curve, what comes to you?
How about juicy chicken schnitzel, grilled salami, fried onions, melted cheddar cheese, and honey mustard on toasted thick-cut city rye bread?
Man, that's like the holy grail of sandwiches.
And so it shall be known as the Illegal Curve Sandwich.
The Illegal Curve Sandwich. Try it today at Bernstein's Deli. Find us at Corridon and Lanark or online at bernsteinsdeli.com.
Hey, Drew.
Ezzy, whoa, what a smile!
Yeah, I got my crowns done at Linden Market Dental Center, and they whiten my teeth.
I see.
They're so bright that every time I smile, they go,
"We have hockey tonight. Do you have a mouth guard to protect those pearly whites?"
I sure do.
Whoa, they even ting through the mouth guard.
Linden Market Dental Center covers all your dental needs from restorative to cosmetic dentistry and will fit you with a sports guard for that active lifestyle. 877 Waverly. See lindenmarketdental.com.
So you're a pizza person, you married a wing person, but somehow your kids are salad people. You can't pick your fam, but you can pick your BP meal deal, starting from $18.99 for takeout or delivery at bostonpizza.com.
Hour number 2 of the Illegal Curve Hockey Show starts now. Drew Mindell, Dave Minuk, Ezra Ginsburg, and special guest voice of the Manitoba Moose and another proud member of the Bald and Beard is Beautiful Club, Daniel Bink, joins us on the show. Daniel, good morning. Nice to see you. How are things?
Special guest. Not just a guest, special guest. Wow. Really buttering me up here. What do you guys know?
Yeah, Dan, Sarah didn't get that either. We didn't introduce Sarah like that. So that, I mean, you should feel extremely honored.
It's because of the...
Yeah, exactly. I mean, do you want a pair of glasses, and maybe you can change your name to Drew Jr. if you really want.
Yeah, we'll see. Sometimes those numbers, you're in Abbotsford and you're in a corner doing the broadcast all the way at the end of the ice. A little tough to read. Maybe I need some. Who knows?
Sounds very reasonable. Obviously, Dan brought you on to talk about the Manitoba Moose with the playoffs upcoming. Just a game left in the regular season, and then it's time to shift the focus to the Milwaukee Admirals. Let's start there. I mean, the Moose and the Admirals will do battle. That announcement was made yesterday, or that was confirmed yesterday or a couple days ago now. In terms of the matchup, how do you think the Moose match up against the Admirals based on what you've seen so far this season?
Well, I think this series, whoever's coming out of it is going to be black and blue by the time they do. This is going to be a hard-fought series. These two teams, they play kind of a similar style in a lot of ways. They're hard on the puck. You don't have a lot of room out there. They're two teams that can really defend. It's tough to play in front of those nets, and both of them are really going to make your life miserable. So it's going to be a real battle. These two teams fought 12 times during the regular season. The previous one not that long ago. So they know each other very well. There's a little bit of animosity along the way. They don't like each other a whole ton, as you might imagine. So whoever comes out of it, it might be limping a little bit, but it's you know what, it's probably, I mean, for the Moose, if you're just basically going off the record.
I think Dan may have just frozen. I'm not 100% sure what just happened to Mr. Fink, but we'll see if he gets unfrozen and we can.
And
there you
not
go.
Sure if you guys lost me there for a second.
We did for a brief second.
Yeah, unfortunately, Dan, we were hoping that we lost Drew, but yeah, we lost you there for a little bit.
Where'd you lose me? I'll start at the Moose were very successful this season at UWM Panther Arena. They picked up a point in all but one of the 6 games that they played there, including 5 wins, I believe it was. So when you start your series with 2 games on the road, it might as well be in a building that you played very well in. So the Moose will be happy about that. There's also some question about what the Admirals lineup's going to look like. Connor Ingram played last night for the Nashville Predators. When's UC Saros coming back? Rocco Grimaldi, their best player, who would have garnered some MVP votes this season because he changes that team completely. Hasn't been in the lineup the last while. Have heard maybe he's going to miss the first round. Maybe he gets back in. We don't know yet. So there's a couple of key components out of the lineup. Not that the Moose are completely unscathed right now, but with basically their 2 most valuable players currently out of the lineup, that's possibly an opportunity for the Moose, but we'll see how it all plays out.
Dan, wanted to ask you about a few players who, Jets and Moose fans are obviously following closely this year. They've been dealing with some bumps and bruises. I think you probably know who I'm going to ask you about. David Gustafson and Christian Vesalainen. Is there any chance that they're going to play this afternoon? And I imagine that, they should be good to go once the first round playoff matchup starts against Milwaukee.
Yeah, we'll have to wait on the lineups to see who's going to end up playing today. The Moose have been kind of swapping guys in and out and making sure that everyone's getting a chance to get a bit of a break during what is admittedly a very busy finish to the season, 5 games in 8 days. So the Moose have not been shy about resting some players, and you know what, they've found some success with some of the guys that have gotten into the lineup as well. So not sure if either will play. Mark Orson said both skated ahead of their previous game on Thursday. So we'll see if they get in the lineup here today. And you know what? If they do, that'll be a nice little tune-up. If they don't, it didn't sound like they were dealing with anything overly serious.
Well, Daniel, I'm going to ask you about the ELC line because they've made a nice little, jump into the lineup, and they've stayed in the lineup. And we weren't sure when they were going to be playing or whether they would all be playing. I'm, of course, talking about 2 Jets draft picks in Daniel Torgerson and Henry Nikkanen, and of course the Jets free agent signing out of college, Wyatt Von Giovanni. So what have been your initial impressions on the guys who, obviously 2 of them, the 2 prospects have played 3 games, and Wyatt who's played 2?
Well, they all fit right in. I mean, they're three guys who just work really hard, and if there's anything we've learned about this Moose club, it's that if you work hard, you're going to fit in, and that's what we've seen from them early on. And when you can add two players that are 6'4" ish in the forward group that both weigh over 215 pounds and move like Henry Niken and Daniel Torgerson do, that's a lot of body moving around the ice, and we've seen how strong these guys are. And despite the fact that Niken's only 21, Torgerson's 20, these two players are very, very strong. So that's very nice to see for two guys kind of early on in their pro development, despite the fact they've been playing pro over in Europe. So it's good to see how developed they are physically. And we've seen the flashes, right? Torgerson, a couple of goals right in front of the net. Niikanen, we saw an unbelievable end-to-end rush a couple of games ago where he was able to use that size to get around a couple guys and then use or I guess his reach to get around a couple of guys, then the heft, the weight to power through another couple, and they both got pretty good shots. So it's been fun to watch them, and it'll be interesting to see how their careers progress from here, and if they're able to get into the lineup during the playoffs. Wyatt Bongiovanni, he's kind of a game behind them and hadn't played in a few weeks before coming to the Moose. So kind of getting a feel for the game, but there's some shiftiness there. There's some speed and quickness in tight places. So it's been interesting to watch him. He's had a couple of good chances along with Niikanen, who's also been held off the board to this point. But you know what? Sometimes these kids break through and then they don't stop.
You know, Daniel Fink, Manitoba Moose broadcaster, our guest on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show Saturday morning. We're live on our YouTube channel. One of the most fascinating parts about the Manitoba Moose, and it's been well documented, is how balanced they are. They don't have anybody that's, you know, driving the bus, especially when it comes to goal scoring or you know, garnering points. You know, you got to go down all the way to number 95, where Jeff Malott, pardon me, is in a tie in the points race in the AHL. You know, and there's a school of thought that a balanced lineup is a very good lineup, but is there any sort of fear that when the team needs that goal, they may not have that one guy who can sort of step up and be that dominant goal scorer come playoff time? I see both sides of that equation, you know, being a factor at this time of the year.
I mean, sure, you'd always love to have a guy like Stefan Nason who scores 45 goals in the year, and you're good to count on him to score once in every 1.5 games. But I mean, you start to look at some of the numbers throughout the season, and some guys got off to slow starts. And Jeff Malott, who you were mentioning, didn't have a goal in his first 6 or 7 games, and since then, though he's hit a bit of a slide here in the last little bit, but over a stretch was scoring pretty much every other game. So he was on pace with all those top scores. CJ Cease, since coming back from injury, has been a top producer, and he's got 5 goals in his last 3 games. And I'm sure you would love to have that guy that you're like, okay, here's our guy who's going to score on the power play from the island every single time. But in the event that you don't have one, as Marty Johnson put it so well the other night, they're not looking for some hero to come in and save them. They're not looking for that one guy to come and save them. They're just looking for everybody to do their job. And if everybody does their job, they're going to be okay. Because as we've seen in the last few games, Moose have scored 6 goals and 7 goals in 2 of their last 3 games. So there's certainly some offense there. The flip side to that is the Moose have to play their game. They can't rely on, you know, having an off night and some skill guy is going to come in and make a couple unbelievable plays, get a hat trick for you, and save the day. They all have to be pulling in the same direction. They all have to work hard, and those goals are going to come from the crease where it is tough to get those goals. So the Moose have to be engaged for 60 minutes a night, every night.
Dan, I wanted to ask you about the line of Evan Poli, Nick Jones, and Cole Meyer, because Dave is always raving about those guys. And, you know, I know that these guys are good players. You got a couple of good Alberta boys, you know, on that line. But when you're talking about Cole Meyer, I mean, breakthrough season for him. But how important is that line going to be, considering that, you know, not only can they contribute offensively, but there's some sandpaper there, and obviously, you know, there's some AHL playoff experience on that line as well.
Well, it's always interesting when you get into the Stanley Cup playoffs. There's always some team that everybody realizes how good their third line is, or how good a certain line is on that group that you've never really heard of. Kind of going back to Daryl Sutter's comments a couple of weeks ago that the playoffs are where you make a name for yourself. Well, this is that line for the Manitoba Moose. This is the line that I would imagine will spend a lot of time playing against the Cole Schneiders of the world, the Cody Glasses of the world in that first round, or if the Moose are fortunate enough to move on and possibly play a Chicago Wolves. These are the guys that play against Andrew Podorowski and have limited the damage all season against the best line in the American Hockey League. Like, these are the guys that can spend an entire shift against the opposition's top line in the offensive zone, not even having to defend because they just get that puck below the goal line. They read off each other so well. They're going to win those physical battles. And there's some sneaky skill in that group as well. Cole Meyer can stick handle in a phone booth, and we've seen that a couple of times where he walks out of a corner and just kind of slithers out where there's two guys on him, and somehow he's getting to the front of the net, and then Evan Polai is just barreling his way towards the goal. And we saw that on Thursday against Abbotsford, where the Moose were able to just dominate the blue paint, and that line was a real driving force in that. So they're defensively responsible, they're strong, they move well, and they've got an element of skill there. So three guys that are all having career seasons, two of them up over 30 points. Polai, if he'd had a bit better luck, I think through kind of the middle of the season, would be knocking on that door as well. So it's a very effective line for the Moose. And when you can rely on that group to anchor the middle of your lineup, you're in a pretty good shape, because Mark Morrison knows he can toss them out there whenever they get into trouble.
You know, Daniel, Mark Morrison, the head coach of the Manitoba Moose, used the word unique after a practice when we were talking to him about this group and just how good they've been. One of the things that you just notice is, I mean, this team cared even when they didn't have something to play for. Last year, they had nothing to play for, and yet they played for each other, and that's carried over. And largely they stayed intact, which you don't necessarily see in the AHL. Oftentimes there's a lot of movement. This group stayed together. They've added pieces. You know, they've shown that they can integrate new guys into the lineup and make them feel like they've been there. I know we were talking about with Nick Hutchinson and how he feels like he's been part of this team forever. So they've been able to integrate guys quickly. But how much excitement are you sensing? You're around these guys more than anyone. How much excitement are you getting from this group, knowing now that they get the chance to play for each other with the playoffs on the line?
Well, and you mentioned it in that they didn't have a specific prize to play for, but they played for each other. So that's what they had to play for. And that's a choice too. We saw it last season in that Canadian division. Some teams, like the Moose, really embraced that. Other teams didn't, and they struggled. And the Moose, like you mentioned, they were so much carryover from that key leadership group that really kind of had that time together and really found that close-knit group that they were able to carry that on. And then they really focused early on in the season in their meetings with the coaching staff. We want to be an inclusive group. We want to bring everybody in. So once they started to get into these situations where more and more players were joining the group, they were able to just apply that same theory. And a lot of it's pretty simple stuff. It's making sure you introduce yourself, making sure that the new guy on the roster hasn't gone the whole day without talking to somebody because he's afraid to open his mouth. They get in there and they just they bring these guys in so nicely, and that translates on the ice. Guys are more confident. They're not worried about making a mistake because they know that this whole group has their back. And we've seen that over and over again. And that's what's going to be one of their biggest weapons going into the playoffs when their backs are up against the wall, because it happens at some point. You get into situations nobody sweeps, or very rarely do teams sweep through the playoffs to a championship. There's going to be some adversity. And this team has seen it all the last couple of seasons, much like everybody else. But I think this team is uniquely prepared to handle it just because they rely on each other so hard.
You know, Dan, with the Jets season coming to an end tomorrow, you're likely to see some players go back to the Moose and maybe, and play for the Moose come, playoff time. And I'm not going to speculate on the names because we'll find out when we find out if there are any players. Maybe there won't be any at all. But, assuming there will be, how not difficult, but what's the challenge for Mark Morrison to sort of reintegrate these players, some of whom have played with the Moose earlier in the year and then have been up at the NHL level and are now coming back to the AHL level. So how much of a challenge do you think that will be for Mark Morrison at this point of the season?
Well, considering the players he could get back, I mean, there's two players who were eligible to come play for the Moose, and that's Morgan Barron and Dylan Sandberg. So
right.
If they were to get those two players back, I don't think it's too big of a chore for him at all, just considering who they are. Dylan Sandberg fits in so well with Johnny Kovacevic. That pairing is one of the more dominant defensive duos in the American Hockey League, but it's always an addition or an adjustment coming back to the American Hockey League. Things aren't quite as crisp. Guys don't necessarily handle a pass quite as well. Guys aren't necessarily where you think they're going to be because NHL is just so structured. For Morgan Barron, he didn't have as much time with the Moose, just a few games, but was starting to figure out the systems well, and that's the advantage there too. They've been playing in the same system, regardless if it's with the Winnipeg Jets or the Manitoba Moose. So Barron's just had more and more time to learn the systems with the Jets at the highest pace possible, and I think that might be what's exciting to the Moose if they are able to get a couple of guys back, is they've been playing at the highest pace that they can, at the highest level, where throughout this season the Moose have had a lot of guys go up to play for the Winnipeg Jets, but unfortunately they've been injured while doing so, so they haven't necessarily gotten that bump of those guys coming back off of playing 5, 6, 7 games in the National Hockey League and then coming right back into the lineup. They've had to wait a month and then, or 2 months as the case may be, and then get back into the lineup. So, I mean, we saw it with Austin Pagansky. He came out very, very strong when he was sent down, and there's always that adjustment, as we mentioned, but I think that the Moose would be happy to get any help that they can from the Jets.
Well, the Moose are going to get some help from a crowd today, Daniel, because there's expectation that it's going to be close to a sellout, I believe, for the final regular season game. That's a lot of excitement, I would imagine, from you being and the players, because we know how much it impacts them when they have a good crowd in the building. They've had some good crowds, but anytime you can get 6, 7, 8,000 people in the building, it's going to make for a much better.
Chanting pancakes.
CJC's was the pancake guy the other night. That was the big cheer from the I think it was 3,500 in attendance. But walked in this morning to the office, and apparently we've got about 115 tickets left for the game here today. So really excited about that. Hoping we can get to post sellout on the board here today. And regardless, I mean, something that's probably gone unheralded throughout the season is the incredible work that the ticket staff has done for the Manitoba Moose. And I mean, it's usually we spend a lot of time talking about the players, rightfully so. That's what we're all here for. But that crew led by Jeff Major has done such unbelievable work. I mean, you think back to earlier in the season when we were only having 250 people at games. They found out that on short notice. That's just the nature of what COVID's done. They had to completely pivot and start moving games, rescheduled games. I mean, today's game was supposed to be our New Year's game, which is part of the reason for that big crowd. But and then finding out on short notice with, I believe it was less than a week, that we could start selling the building again, coming out of the 250 crowds. They had, I think it was 4,000 people in the building, both those first games coming out. It was incredible. And they have just been moving tickets like crazy. There's a lot of folks that are happy to get to the building and happy to kind of reconnect with friends and reconnect with live sports and live events. And that's been great to see as well. But they've just done such a fantastic job this season at getting people in the building with some, certainly over the last 2 years, some incredible challenges for people in those roles. So they've done a great job, and the response from Winnipeggers and Manitobans has been incredible. And we're really looking forward to seeing that support continue into playoffs. But what better way to send the Moose off into the postseason than a packed house, which is sure to be an electric atmosphere here this afternoon.
It certainly will be. And single game tickets, allow me to give a plug, single game playoff tickets go on sale on May the 2nd, which according to my calendar is Monday. So if you're looking to watch some playoff hockey in Winnipeg, you can get your Moose single game playoff tickets starting Monday for games 3 and, if necessary, 4 and 5 of the first round playoff matchup against the Milwaukee Admirals. How's that for a plug? Did I get that right?
That's fantastic. But if you want to jump the gun, if you want your playoff tickets now, we're in instant gratification. That's a society we live in. If you want your playoff tickets now, you can go to moosehockey.com/playoffs and get your playoff packages, which gets you the best deal and one of the best deals to come see some live hockey in the city right now. $16.50 those start at per ticket, and you can pay as we play. If you want to go all in on the Moose to head to the Calder Cup, you can just throw that lump sum down and go for it. But there's a lot of different options in there for how you want to purchase your tickets, and you can book your seat. I mean, if the Moose continue to play the way they are and can go on a deep run, it's going to be a pretty hot ticket. So might as well book your seats now.
Well, and while we're doing plugs, I mean, we got to give you a huge shout out, you and the Moose in general, for being generous, because we've been able to send a lot of folks to Moose games this year, and I think Dave will back me up here. I mean, people are just so appreciative. We've kind of been calling it the illegal curve zone. I don't know if Mark Chipman is okay with that, but I mean, we're just so I think I'm lost for words. We're what's the word here? I'm grateful is the word I'm looking for. Appreciative. Sorry, I mean, I was up early with the kids today, Dan, but we're just appreciative that we've been able to give away a lot of Moose tickets this year, because the response we get, people just absolutely, have a blast at the games and, always say the best things about their experience. So just wanted to get that in there.
Well, we appreciate the coverage, guys, and it's been a fun season. It's a great group that deserves all the support in the world, and I think that's the best part is this group of players, this group of fellas, as we usually call them. It's a great group, and you know what? It's a team that Winnipeg and Manitoba can really be proud to call their own, and we hope the best for them. And obviously, that's great for all of us if we get to cover hockey all the way into June. But it's just a group that you want the best for. You want them to succeed because of the people that they are.
Daniel Fink will have the broadcast of this afternoon's season finale, and he'll have the broadcast of all the playoff games. Hopefully the Moose go on a long playoff run. Dan, thanks for joining us this morning. Always appreciate it.
Thank you very much. And I just one last plug here before I go. All of the games going into the playoffs are going to be on 680 CJOB. So we'll be online like normal, but we'll be on the main station as well, which is some great news for us. So we're excited to bring in the games there as well. So it's going to be an exciting couple of months, hopefully, guys. And we're happy to have you along for the ride.
We will hopefully touch base with you again as the Moose go on a run, and you'll be our number one source of information. We don't need any Minuk
special guest.
Yeah,
special guest. That's right. We don't need Moose minutes. We need Fink time. That's what we need.
Sometimes you need the Moose. I can't even say it now. The Minuk Moose minute. You need those quick bites, and then you can kind of get the bigger, heftier investment in your time. Than that.
There's only one problem, Dan. That I've switched to the Minuk Moose minute. I've removed the word minute. It shouldn't be minute because I tend to go on and on and on and on. But hey, there's lots to talk about with the Moose. Hence the reason why I tend to.
Moose Minutia with Dave Minuk.
Well, no, there's a reason why there's an S in brackets next to the word minute. It gives us a little bit of flexibility there. Dan, thank you. Have a great call today.
Thanks, guys. Have a great rest of the show, rest of your day.
Thanks very much. There he goes. Dan Fink joining us on the program today. We got a few minutes. Let's talk about the NHL playoffs. They get underway on Monday. I know Ezzy's always champing at the bit to talk about the playoff matchups. Of the 8 first-round playoff matchups,
I think the Jets are going to do really well.
I think the Jets are going to dominate. Which one are you most interested in, Mr. Ginsburg?
Oh, God. I mean, there's so many good matchups here. I mean, Toronto, Tampa Bay, is going to get a lot of headlines, especially on the major networks, right? So Toronto, Tampa Bay, just because you've got a Leafs team that, arguably, we seem to say this every year, but it seems like this team, with the acquisition of Mark Giordano, and how good their depth lines have been, right? Like Ilya Mikheyev, Pierre Engvall, Jason Spetz is quietly having a really good year in his late 30s. So Toronto, Tampa Bay for sure. We're all going to be watching that. We're going to be watching every single game. I'm going to Richie's house on Monday, and obviously, we mentioned earlier he's with the Leafs organization now, so we'll be watching that game. But we're going to be look at like St. Louis versus Minnesota. Like,
don't you have a show on Monday?
Well, after the show, I'm going to be going. Okay. St. Louis versus Minnesota, to me, guys, is a fascinating matchup for so many reasons, right? St. Louis has the cup from a few years back, right? But you've got a Minnesota team with Kirill Kaprizov. They just haven't had that dynamic offensive player since really Marian Gaborik, right? So to me, like St. Louis, Minnesota, I just love so many things about that series. I mentioned Toronto, Tampa Bay. Like, to me, Edmonton, LA, like I think you would say that maybe Edmonton's the favorite in that series, but there's always going to be the question marks. Like, is Mikko Koskinen, really going to be able to give them the goaltending? By the way, I probably would pick the Oilers in that series. I mean, even looking at Boston versus Carolina, right? Like, the thing with the East is every single team, I believe this is the first year in history, every single team that qualified for the playoffs had at least 100 points.
In the East,
So you look at Carolina versus Boston, even looking at, Florida versus Washington, right? Like, Washington's an underdog because Florida, of course, won the President's Trophy, but are they really that big of an underdog? As long as you've got,
if Ovechkin's not playing, they are.
Well, yeah, but I mean, even without Ovechkin, it's still a very good team, right? Like, the goaltending, again, Vitek Vanacek has never done it, right? So, like, you've got a young goalie there, but I mean, so I would probably say St. Louis versus Minnesota is the most intriguing to me. Even Colorado, Nashville. Like, again, I'm going to take Colorado. I don't think it's going to be a sweep, guys. I think Nashville is going to give the Avalanche a run for their money. So,
if that series goes 5, that's as far as it's going. Without UC Saros, if Saros isn't in net for Nashville,
Well, but that's the thing. We don't know for sure if he's not going to be. Yeah.
By all accounts, it doesn't sound very good. I mean, they were saying 4 to 6 weeks, speculating. No confirmation on that. But look, that's
that's the only series, Drew. That's the only series that you could even mention.
Calgary Dallas isn't going to be close either. I don't think. I think Calgary's going to win that one relatively handily. Look, Nashville was
going to be a sweep though.
Well, there rarely are the series sweeps. 5 games is pretty one-sided. Nashville.
Well, the Jets were involved with 2 last year, Drew.
Nashville was up 4-0 against the Coyotes last night. They needed to earn 1 point to avoid Colorado in the first round. They were up 4-0 8 minutes into the game, and they lost 5-4 in regulation.
Oh, no. I'm not saying that. I don't think Dallas is going to beat Colorado. I'm just saying that I don't think, pardon me, Nashville.
Yeah.
I just don't think that there's necessarily going to be, it's as lopsided. I mean, look at every year there's upsets every single year. That's all I'm going to say.
It's funny you say that because that's true. That's usually the case. I don't think there's going to be any upsets in the first round. I don't think any of the wild card teams, and those are the ones that are really only the upsets. A 2 versus a 3 usually isn't an upset. I don't think any of the wild card teams, if any of the wild card series go 6, that's as far as they're going to go. I don't think anything goes anywhere further than that. I don't think any of those series are going 7. I think most of the wild card series are going to be pretty one-sided, Dave.
Yeah, I mean, I would suggest that probably the most interesting one is going to be Toronto. I mean, not wild card, but just from a series perspective.
Yeah,
I really think Toronto and Tampa is the one for me. Like that's the one that I think, and I don't have any axe to grind with the Leafs. I really don't care about them one way or another. I don't cover them, so I don't really focus on them. But the reality is, I just think like it's such an interesting story, right? I mean, they had so much team success, so much individual success against a Tampa Bay team that's just. How are they going to be able to do it? 3 playoffs in a row. Are they going to be able to grind it out and have the drive? Steven Stamkos hits 100 points for the first time in his career, which seems remarkable. I don't know how that's even capable. Jets fans will remember when he scored his 60th of the year here in Winnipeg a few years back. So I think what it comes down to is that there is a lot of excitement to watching these playoffs. I think to me at least, and especially in the East, there's going to be so many good matchups. And I think, look, oftentimes the first and the second rounds are the best rounds anyways in the playoffs. Mm-hmm. But, the last few years, especially when the NHL was so arrogant that they kept thinking, well, we can play in the summer. People are going to care. And it's like, no. And the numbers, of course, bore that out. The numbers were terrible, other than potentially regionally. But, like, look, I think it'll it's still, the weather is still not great. Some places obviously are nicer and folks have other things to do. But the reality is, there is still going to be, I think, an interest, especially with there's a lot of Canadian, there's a lot of expectation on Toronto. There's a lot of expectation on potentially Calgary and especially Calgary, Edmonton maybe as well. So you might have a little more Canadian content into the second and third rounds this year. So I think that's going to drive obviously interest in Canada and obviously then you'll still have the big regional potentially interest down in the States.
Give me your cup finalist and your Stanley Cup winner. You can change your mind from what it was at the beginning.
I don't even remember. Do you usually keep track? What was it? Do you remember?
I don't remember exactly. Didn't Ezzy predict the Islanders to do well though?
I did. I picked them to win the cup. Yeah.
There you go. So you don't have to pick the Islanders again, Ezzy. But
they didn't qualify for the play.
That's why you wouldn't pick them.
I mean, first off, the fact listening to Dave, break down some of these series makes me want to do a full playoff preview show. I do want to say one. I'll give you my cup pick that obviously isn't going to be right, but one series too that I feel like not as many people are talking about maybe around these parts. Pittsburgh Rangers. I think it's tough to bet against the Rangers. I mean, Shesterkin is for sure a top goalie, if not the top goalie, along with Andrei Vasilevsky. But Pittsburgh has quietly, I've said this before on the show, they've quietly just had a good season, right? Like obviously Crosby and Malkin having good season. Jake Gensel. I don't think his offensive season has been given enough, but just a team that, has been there before. And Tristan Jarry's had a really good season, right? 4 shutouts. There were some question marks about, Jarry, how was he going to respond to a down year, right? So I'm just saying Pittsburgh and Rangers, to me, I would love to see that be like a 7-gamer, right? I just wanted to throw that out there. I mean, the Rangers, and Chris Kreider having a great year. Mika Zibanejad. I mean, we know everything, all the talent on that roster. So I'm just going to say that, that's a series that I think a lot of fans are going to, enjoy watching. But I mean, so I'll give you my picks first, and then Dave M can get in here. I do think this is Colorado's year. I just think that, the acquisitions they made prior to the trade deadline. I mean, they were already a very, very deep team, right? But bringing in a Josh Manson, bringing in a big physical defenseman, bringing in Arturi Lekkinen from Montreal. I just think the Joey Sakic always seems to make the right moves here. So I'm going to take Colorado to win the Stanley Cup. And I think they are going to face, I know people are going to think this is a little bit far-fetched maybe for them to get back there, but I think they're going to beat the Tampa Bay Lightning in the final.
Wow. Okay. Good prediction from you, Mr. Ginsburg. Dave M., you are giving us a quick prediction. You give it to us.
I'm going with the battle of Dave Lowry's former teams. Florida Panthers, Calgary Flames.
Okay. Thank you. Fair enough.
I like that. I could see that. That would probably, Dave, by the way, that would be my number 3 and number 4 choice.
I'm going Calgary Flames.
Calgary, Dave M.
I like it.
The Flames are going to win the cup. Wow. I'm going to echo what Ginsburg said. I think the Avs are still the best team in the league, and I think the Avs are going to win the Stanley Cup. And as much as it chagrins me to say this, I do think that they're going to beat the Toronto Maple Leafs. I think the Leafs come out of the East. I think that they're able to overcome the first round bugaboo. I think that they're going to.
Do you have some bourbon there, Drew? Like, are you picking the Leafs?
I'll tell you, if it happens, I'm going to need a lot of bourbon to drink because it's going to be completely insufferable. But at the very least, I think they lose in the cup final. I'm not going to say that they win, but I do think that they make it to the cup final.
They have to get out of the first round first. They haven't done that in a long time.
I have not. And I do think that they get past Tampa Bay, and then I think they go on a run. And I think it's the Nazem Kadri Stanley Cup final between the Avalanche and the Leafs.
I like it, though. It's a ballsy pick. It is a ballsy pick. I'll give you that much.
Well, if I'm anything, it is ballsy. So that, at the very least, I am that. How's that for a good pun to wrap up this Saturday morning? A reminder: special edition of the Illegal Curve Hockey Show coming your way Monday night, 8:00 back here on our YouTube channel. Set a reminder. Subscribe to the channel. Subscribe to the podcast. Don't miss a minute. One final game, number 82. We've done 81 of them. You damn well bet we're going to do 82 of them. The post-game show tomorrow afternoon, myself and Mr. Minuk after the Jets and the Kraken.
The Mason Appleton revenge game.
And the salute to Dennis Mayak. So you can be here for that tomorrow afternoon, right around 3:30 or thereabouts. So join us for that. And again, reminder, subscribe, set a reminder. Don't miss a minute. Want to say a big thank you to all the sponsors of Illegal Curve who make the post-game show, the Saturday show, and the website a possibility. Rumors Restaurant and Comedy Club, Linden Market Dental Center, Zappia Group Realty, Betway, Bernstein's Deli, Tough Duck, Boston Pizza, Seagram's, Rolly's Transfer, and Grid Park. Support these fine businesses because of their continued support of Illegal Curve Hockey. Dave Minuk's on the top left. Ezra Ginsburg's in the bottom middle. I'm your host, Drew Mindell. If you haven't already done so, subscribe to the YouTube channel, subscribe to the podcast, rate us, review us, leave us a comment. Tell your friends, tell your family the best place to be every Saturday morning. And again, after every Winnipeg Jets game. Dave, don't start switching which side of the screen you're on when I'm in the middle of my finale. You come back here to the Illegal Curve YouTube channel every Saturday morning, and again, after each and every Winnipeg Jets game. One more to go. We'll see you tomorrow afternoon. Thanks so much for joining us. Have a great rest of the Saturday. We hope you've enjoyed the Illegal Curve Hockey Show.